Hello and welcome to another webcast by Select Secure Solutions. For the month of August 2022, we're going to be learning from past breaches, and our focus will be financial services. And so we know it's so much better to learn from the mistakes, the breaches, the hacks of others. Why? Because if we can find the lesson, put them into practice, then we can minimize the same mistake happening to us, happening to you if you're in the financial services. And many of the things that we'll be talking about will really apply to just about any business that wants to have some form of data security. And so let's get into our discussion. We're going to be focusing on this data security breach report. In the state of Texas, the law requires that certain businesses, if they experience a data security breach, then one, they need to notify affected consumers, and two, they need to provide a notice of that data breach to the Office of the Texas Attorney General if it affects 250 Texans or more. And so the Texas Attorney General was able to have available a data breach submission form. And within that form, entities that experience a data breach, well, now they follow those steps of the law, and now that within this portal, you're able to go through and see different entities, businesses, individuals that experienced a data security breach. And so just looking at our screen here, we get to see just some of these in the financial field. And within that, you begin to look at some of the information that's affected. We begin seeing there's social security numbers, there's names, there's individuals, the name of the individual, driver's license, government issued ID number, whether it's in a passport, a state card, but then there's also financial information. Perhaps it's an account number, credit or debit card, health insurance information. And then it helps us to see, one, how many Texans were affected, was there a notice provided, and in what method this happened and when it was published. And so let's take a look at one in particular, because we just ended up searching through some of these just to see which ones we might be able to find within a Google search and see, was there any notice that was provided, whether on a web page or is in the news. And one that we found in particular was this one, Mia Thornton Jones, and it lets us know what information was found. So similar information: name, address, social, driver's license, passport information, financial information. Lets us know how many different Texans were affected and when it was put up notice on this site. And so just doing a little Google searching, we begin to see that it wasn't just Texans that were affected. Montana state law also requires businesses to notify affected individuals. So not only did they have clients in Texas, but also Montana. And we begin to see when the breach started, when it ended, when it was reported. So we begin to see a span there of 5 months or so. But evidently we can see that Montana law is different than Texas. Texas says if it was 250 individuals or more. Montana, this is with any, as you can see, it's 2. So any, to notify any of the consumers if their personal information was compromised. And so every state will have likely some form of data protection laws in which there's a breach notification requirement. And so if you're doing business in multiple states, then it's good to make sure that you're aware, what are the breach notification laws for the states in which my company does business. So let's take a look further into this data breach notification document. And so we were able to click on that and open it up. And this is what we were able to find. Able to see some of the things that transpired with this data security incident. And so we began to see there was notice that went out. It was sent in form of a letter. And they were letting affected individuals know that their personal information, their name, physical address, social, a financial account number may have been impacted. And they expressed their apologies. But what we want to know is what happened. And so here in the second paragraph, they mentioned that they are taking steps to reduce the likelihood of this happening in the future. And so that's what we want to learn from. So let's get into how it happened. It says, since the incident, all affected email passwords have been changed. So now we know email was the target. Now, let's go delve into this a little further. Multi-factor authentication was implemented for access to all email accounts within our environment. So we know email was the target, which means if email was the target, it was perhaps an individual. Now here's another one. It says on April 15, they became aware of suspicious activity associated with a corporate email account. And so immediately an investigation began. They hired independent computer forensic investigators to assist, and it was determined that an unauthorized user had gained access to 2 email accounts for roughly 24 hours. So within that span of April 14th to April 15th, there were 2 accounts that had been compromised. So now that helps us to appreciate that over here, they said there were things that they needed to do. They changed all affected email passwords. Was that just the 2 accounts? Don't know. Likely something that would be good. Well, let's take a look in here. In this one, they said again, all affected passwords have been changed. So could that have just been those 2 email accounts that they needed to change the passwords to? Did they implement and encourage all to change their passwords to make sure that all of them were unique and strong passwords? That's something that really all businesses could learn from. Using passwords that are unique for every account. And you may be wondering, how will I remember all of that? Well, that's where a password manager will come into play. And some of you may already begin using something like that within your browser and saving the passwords. But are they all unique? And many browsers are implementing some way of informing you if your password was found at a breach and so on. But that's a good start. It's certainly not the best way, because passwords within browsers can easily be extracted. And with many that are signing into their browsers and taking their history and passwords with them, then you certainly want to be aware of that before you sign into a computer that you don't own, a browser that isn't on your personal devices, because now you open yourself up to someone else having access to your passwords. So we'll certainly get to talk about that in another discussion. Extracting passwords from browsers is an easy task. So a password manager certainly would be better making unique password for every account. So if your users at this point do not have unique passwords for every account, strong passwords for their emails. Good idea to talk to them about password security and implement some changes. Then they mentioned that multi-factor authentication was implemented for access to all email accounts. So we also learned that they did not have two-factor or multi-factor authentication for all of the accounts. It wasn't implemented for all of them. And so therein lies another mistake. And so a lesson for you. In addition to the passwords, make sure two-factor authentication is enabled, that it's enforced for all accounts. So that was for our first one within financial services. Let's take a look at another one. We begin to see this one, another financial services company within this organization, Lion Street Financial. And we begin to see when this was, who it was submitted to. There's Texas, when it occurred, January. But this not only affected Texans, but also others in Maine. And so here again we see January 20th and 21st, 2021. And they mention external system breach hacking. Information acquired, name, personal identifier, driver's license, ID number. So let's find out a little bit more about that, because here we see that there is a document for this Lion Street Financial. So once we open that up, we're able to find, just with searching Google, able to find out a little bit about this incident. Now, within this notice again, they let you know that your personal information may have been impacted. And what happened with this one? Earlier this year, we became aware of suspicious activity associated with one of our corporate email accounts. So here again, email was the target, an individual. Now, what did they do differently? Within this one, they mentioned they changed all passwords. So certainly good practice. They made sure everyone had their password changed and enabled additional access controls to protect the accounts. So again, we see similar things as we go over here. Steps taken in response to the incident has changed user passwords. Now they retrained staff on identifying and responding to phishing emails. So now we understand that the person was a target. Phishing email was the means. So more than likely someone clicked on the link. Maybe it was taken to a form in which they put in their username and password that would now give access to a threat actor to log into their email, and no one would know because they didn't have any two-factor authentication. No other way to verify. And so it's possible now someone was in your email. Could they have made a copy of that email and kept that within their environment? So they started implementing multi-factor authentication on user accounts. But here's something else that we find. It says they hired investigators, forensic investigators, and determined that an unauthorized user had gained access to a limited number of corporate email accounts. So they do know, they said it was associated with one, but were there more that were compromised? Could have been. Maybe they were shared emails that this user had access to that now they were able to get into, that's unknown. But here's the key. It says, unfortunately, the investigators were unable to determine what emails or attachments, if any, may have been viewed by the unauthorized individual. So now we begin to see they had no logs of user activity. Perhaps from where did the user log in? They were able to find out something was what was wrong. Whatever the suspicious activity, whatever led, maybe there were emails that went out and others started calling them, letting them know that we're receiving some emails from you. And then they begin finding out, and they call and they answer, and they let them know, do not click on that link or download any documents. That happens many times. Our clients receive phishing emails and they're caught by security. And many times we'll call our client, our partners, and ask them, were they expecting this? This is what we found. And they review it and they said, no, we don't know who that is. And we will call sometimes the companies and let them know. Many times they're unaware. Some are in disbelief because they feel that they have everything under control. And others inform us that they've been receiving calls since they found out about the incident. Many people are calling about these things. So sometimes they're aware, sometimes they aren't. Some they just don't want to believe it. But whatever reason whatever caused them to see this suspicious activity, doesn't mean that they had a log of what was going on. And so, out of an abundance of caution, they conducted a comprehensive review of the email accounts to determine what information may be at risk. And in August, we determined that some of your personal information may have been contained in the email accounts. And so we begin to see that in January, they found out what was going on, suspicious activity. August is when, after their review, so about 8 months, they had some information, and it says, while we were unable to confirm what emails or attachments may have been accessed, we wanted to notify you so that you can take action, protect yourself. So now we begin to see here within those 8 months, and that's why the notice went out September 30th, a month later. So we begin seeing some things that each company is doing differently, but certainly some takeaways. So we got to see that they did not have really a log of their information, what emails were accessed. And here's what you'll find in Freemail. Here's just a screenshot. Many businesses will use Freemail. We certainly recommend that you do not use Freemail for your email system for work or your employees. Why? Because you have no control over that email address. What information is being gathered? What happens when that employee leaves with their Freemail account? What documents are contained? You have no control over it. Could that already be an incident? But let's just take a look at the logs. Even within the Freemail, you can begin to see recent activity. We begin to see some things that you're able to see time and date. You're able to see location, IP addresses, and allow you to take action if you see something unfamiliar. And so that's certainly good practice to look at. Look into your Freemail. If you start seeing that there is suspicious activity from countries that you do not travel to, maybe it's time to really get control of the email for your business. These other companies that we talked about in financial services, they had actual email that they controlled. But if you and your users are seeing this, and how will you even know if your employees, if they're using Freemail, how will you know if they have unsuccessful login attempts, or even if there are some that are successful? Let's take a look further. You begin to see more activity. And what device, how they're trying to log in, Windows device, Chrome. You begin to see all these different things, and you know that the password is incorrect. Do you have family living in Russia that's logging in? Your employees over there? No. So you begin looking. If this isn't familiar, it's time to get control of your email. This is actually one of our clients. Now we're actually able to assist them in sorting through logs, finding out user activity, what accounts they logged into, and where. And we're able to those that will allow us to implement tighter security, we're able to block countries from which they do not travel. This one's failed login. This one, their goal is to implement tighter security because they've been seeing too many failed attempts from outside of the United States. Most of them have been in Russia and Asia and those countries, in which none of their employees ever travel. But these were all failed password attempts. And so we made sure to inform them, if someone were to likely get a password, then, and you receive notification attempts, make sure that you quickly inform us so that action can be taken. Do not go through what many companies have gone through, this notification fatigue, and then they approve the access. That's a big mistake. So make sure that you have control of the email with your IT security service provider or your in-house IT, and be able to go through the logs so that you can see the malicious activity. Check it out in the report. And so these were some of these failed attempts there in Asia. Our partners that we care for, they don't travel there. And so what are the takeaways? Certainly we want to make sure that any account that we use, especially email, any portal you log into, does it have two-factor authentication? Make sure that it's implemented, it's enforced. You use unique passwords or passphrases for every account. No password reuse. And there may be instances in which you log into a portal and there's really only one user. And users have to share it. Maybe it's within some of these healthcare in healthcare and other places where you're only allowed to have one user and you have to share it. Well, that's where password managers can help you with that. It allows you to have a little more control over it. There's still ways that when you share accounts, even through a password manager, even if you make the password not visible or they can't edit, it doesn't make that piece foolproof. But it is certainly a better option to where you have a little more control over that password. And so we don't have what happens in many companies. They share it out and someone forgets the password and they do a password reset because they also share the same Gmail account and the password is reset. Now no one else remembers the password, and then the next person asks around and no one says anything and they reset the next password. So you begin to see the time that's wasted. turn on auditing and logging. Many of those features are not automatically turned on. Whether it's Microsoft, Google, turn them on so that now you have a history of access. Not only where they logged in, when they logged in, what devices, but what emails did they have access to? And you certainly want to make sure you are alerted on failed login attempts. Will the account lock out after 5 attempts? What are some of the policies that you've set for that? Why was there so much information within their email? If you noticed suspicious activity within your email, would you have to put out the same type of notice? Would they find credit card information, passport, driver's license, other banking information within the email of your company? Wouldn't it be better to have a more secure way of sharing documents? Absolutely. And so if you have a secure portal, you're using something like SharePoint, or even within Google Workspace, and other platforms, you're able to share documents securely. Turn on access when you want, turn it off. Allow them to upload documents, allow you to share them. That is certainly much better than having all of those documents within your email. If you're in financial services, or if you're in healthcare, you're in HR, make sure that you have a secure way of sharing documents. Disable login for out of the country or wherever your employees are not. You may have trusted locations, and that's fine. But outside of that, if it's untrusted, do not allow the ability to log in. And definitely implement security awareness training. Make sure that your employees, your staff, they understand how to identify phishing emails. They understand how to inform you if they accidentally click. We know, we see it. Threat actors are becoming, they're improving their phishing. And especially if it's targeted, sometimes it's not always easy to tell. And some have impersonated. They've actually taken over the account from someone else that you know and is trusted, and now they begin sharing documents to you to exploit your weaknesses, to exploit that trust. And so sometimes it's not always easy to know where that phishing is coming from. And have some simulation phishing tests. Then your users begin to get in the habit of identifying them. And many of these different ways of doing these phishing tests, they begin using real life examples, what has been found out in the wild, you might say. And so now it allows them to become keen at identifying these phishing attempts. So I know we went over a lot of information packed in. And so if you missed our session, there's the recording that you'll have available to you. And if you need assistance, talk to your IT team. If you don't have one and you're looking for assistance, give us a call. We can help you to migrate, secure your email, train your employees, assist you in better securing your information, finding better ways to share it and transmit it. And so feel free to call or text or email. We look forward to working with you. Until the next time, stay secure, stay safe,